So now transitioning to our panel element of this presentation, we have our GSP Student Engagement Coordinator, Brigitte. We have a GSP first year student, Samir, and one of our dialogue facilitators, GSP second year, Eric. So if you guys would like to introduce yourselves, and then we can move into some questions.
Thank you, Max. So my name is Brigitte. My pronouns are she, her, and I am currently a graduate student at the Tubman College for a master's in urban and regional planning. I was a part of Global Scholars Program in my undergraduate years as well, so for my sophomore through senior year. And now I take on the role as the Student Engagement Coordinator. So I serve as office support for the dialogue facilitators and advisory council.
Hey guys, my name is Samir and I'm a first year GSP student and I'll be returning next year as a peer facilitator. And yeah, I'm a junior majoring in computer science and I'm from Mumbai in India.
All right, cool. And my name is Eric, he, him pronouns. I'm a current second year in GSP and I'm a dialogue facilitator and I'm a senior majoring in environmental engineering. And I'm an out of state student, sorry. Yeah, so yeah.
Great, thank you all. Thank you all for being here. I'm so excited to hear your perspectives on what kind of effects GSP has had on your college experience. So for our first question, GSP creates shared lived experiences and provides a space to learn so much from peers and practicing healthy dialogue or even just cafeteria conversations. So in your experience, how do you think COVID has impacted, enhanced, shifted that? And what kinds of things do you see looking into next year, or just like kind of what do you hold from that year?
Samir or Eric, do you want to speak to that first?
I guess sure. Yeah. So I guess like with COVID, of course, with everything moving online, it is a bit more difficult to interact with people generally in social circles and all. But I think what GSP helps with is definitely the social aspect too. Like we meet people virtually, like we meet at CG every week. We meet people in class and like small breakout rooms and all. And in that way, you still stay connected to people. So like one thing I definitely took away from GSP was that it helped me stay connected with people despite there being a pandemic, and also meet new people. So that was really good about GSP this year.
I would say something similar. I would say that being a peer facilitator this year and a dialogue facilitator specifically, it's because dialogue is such a huge part of GSP. It can be kind of hard to have dialogues virtually, but like this year, I think we've done a pretty good job, and people are still pretty engaged with those topics. But that's just like a difficulty of the virtual circumstances. But like still, I've been told that people are getting a lot out of it, and people are enjoying them. So that's good to hear from the other students.
I certainly have a different experience now because I was only ever a part of GSP when we were all in person and everyone lived in North Quad their first year. And I think like the one aspect that GSP kind of struggled with adapting to in COVID is providing the opportunities for the out of class conversations and just like the hangouts in the hallways or the lounges and just kind of those naturally occurring conversations that I found so beneficial and really helped me to build relationships with my peers in GSP pre-COVID. But throughout the year, we've definitely adapted and found new ways to have that. We still have the chai chatters. And even though it's a little bit harder because you can't have 3 different conversations going on at once, it's just one big group conversation. It is still really nice and refreshing, even for myself as a grad student, to hop in and just check in on how everyone's doing, how online classes are going. Sometimes, even for myself, it's really the only conversation I have, just like a check-in conversation with each other, like another human being. So it's been really nice. And I think in the future, everyone's hopeful that we'll be back in person in the fall with some remote learning, and GSP will, I know, continue to be able to adapt to whatever circumstances presented, because we really do value the community aspect and allowing for people to get to know each other and be supportive of each other.
Thank you all so much for that. I know it's definitely been hard for me as well as an RA during this COVID semester, or COVID year, I suppose, but I definitely look back on my times last year, especially in in-person times. And hopefully next year it'll be in person as well, where we can recreate that kind of spontaneous, I don't know, living room, lounge conversations that we all hold so dear. And so I guess I can go on to the next question. So how do you think, so we talked a little bit about like the personal development that you get through dialogue and collaborative groups. What are some learned traits that you think you've learned from these experiences that have helped you in other facets of life?
I think one of the most important learned traits is just the ability to dialogue in general. So like in dialogue, we all kind of try to be respectful of one another's viewpoints and like try and listen and kind of validate everyone's feelings. And a lot of times in like the real world and in a lot of situations, it doesn't always work out like that. Like a lot of people uh, will hear something that they disagree with and immediately attack a person. But I think GSP and like doing dialogues kind of like help with that. And like now I'm less likely to just attack a person based on their idea. I kind of want to like understand or try and kind of dig deeper than that and like ask why they feel that way about something. So I think that's one really important skill that came out of GSP for me.
I guess like for me, I think like just getting exposure to new ideas. Like for instance, like in a global engagement internship, like I'm working with a partner organization in Morocco, and like we wouldn't usually have such opportunities. And like I think this facilitates a good exchange of ideas. You learn something new, like interacting with your partner organizations and like about different cultures, about different people. And I think that generally translates to every facet of your life because you're more open generally when you interact with other people, and you also try to acknowledge how people are different than you, or also recognize the privilege you have at times.
Yeah, I would agree with both of those sentiments. It really helps you to really push past your preconceived notions, and kind of like Eric said, even in a one-on-one conversation with someone, if there's a point where you disagree, like take the time to understand why they hold that perspective, and instead of just jumping to like shaming them or attacking them as a person, or just like it becoming an argument. I think there's a lot to learn why someone holds that viewpoint. And of course, like we still, because we do uphold social justice and it's a core value we have, like it it's a nice guiding point too, to be able to provide a basis, like when it is appropriate and necessary, to call people, not to call them all out, but to really push on why they hold those viewpoints. and to try to add information from either your own experience or a learned experience from someone else about why the viewpoints that they hold are harmful. And I should have said this in my introduction, but in between my undergraduate and graduate years, I worked in a couple different jobs. And so some learned traits that really helped me in the workplace are exactly that. Don't attack the person, attack the ideas, and bring into question what they've said, or even just like simple phrases, offhanded phrases that we've accepted as cultural norms can often be harmful. And when you hear it in the workplace, like GSP equipped me to be able to call that out in a productive manner. So to kind of just, like we said earlier, point out the harm in those phrases. And then it brings on the issue of trying to be an agent of change in systemic issues as well. And the dialogue viewpoint can really help in that as well, because you don't really make enemies in the workplace. Then you can find ways to collaborate with each other. And it is really hard to not feel personally attacked when someone doesn't take that same approach and they attack you if they don't have enough information to counter the point that you brought up, and it can feel like they're really putting you down, and it is hard. And I also do recognize that, like, when, for example, there was a racist comment said in our work meetings, or there was a perception that someone held that had roots of racism, like, I acknowledge I didn't feel personally attacked because it doesn't attack me personally. But, it's like, but there, of course, are also times where there was like instances of women being objectified in the workplace or things like that, where it does have more personal attacks. But regardless, it's really important to not let that go. It's important to take the time and to call it out. And that's what GSP really equips you to do, is to be able to uncover the layers and really get at the root issues. But it also, a couple more things that it helped me with is to take the time to get to know your peers and coworkers and really get to know each other on a personal level. Also to always listen and have an open mind, and to acknowledge that other people's lived experiences are important. So just to carry that with you in your classes, in other internships, in jobs, etc.
Definitely. As a actually third year GSP student, I definitely feel like I've gained a lot from the dialogues and interactions within GSP, whether they've been for the class, whether they've been real dialogues, or whether they've just been in the dorms. I think, like Samir, like Eric, like Bajit commented on, those dialogues are really important, and I think really help me, and I hope can help other people just grow as a person and grow to be more empathetic through these situations and dialogues that we have within the program. Although it's definitely different with COVID and being online, I still think, and like Samir said, these are really important interactions that students are getting a lot from. And just to segue into another question for the group, how has GSP enhanced your studies or research or etc.? How has GSP enhanced your work?
I think just a point that I already said, but it pertains to this question, is just that through the class and through dialogues and through our experiential learning with the internships, some lessons, like it kind of shifts your thinking away from just memorizing the information that's presented to you in class and becoming much more of a critical thinker. And so in your studies and in your research, the lessons from GSP really help you to dive into the impact of your research and study and the impact that it has on people, so that you don't just take things at face value, but you explore the repercussions, and just that you can really address the structural issues at hand. And so we mentioned earlier the experience in Jeevan Tirth. I was also able to go, I believe maybe the year or something prior, one of the first years that GSP went. And from that experience, I had a very let me just take a step back. So at Jeevan Tirth, as you mentioned, part of the program is that you're able to help the nonprofit conduct a needs assessment and be able to talk with families that live in the slums. And so, I entered this work. We did background research. We tried to get an understanding of the community. You come in with preconceived notions, and just, of course, there were some things that were reflective of the research we had done before, but it was really not what I expected, the experience that we had there. And, for example, like India has this federal policy to try to upgrade the slums with building apartments and providing housing and access to water and sewage as a human right that should be guaranteed in all housing developments. Well, what we started to see and hear from families is, even though this policy sounded great, it wasn't always implemented in a way that truly helped these families. And it really wasn't even implemented in a way that did provide reliable water and sewage 24 hours a day. So there's just kind of these subtle nuances that you wouldn't have learned had you not tried to seek out the personal experience behind the stories and just like the impacts of policy. So especially now that I'm in the field of urban planning, that's something that I really prioritize, is seeking out a variety of personal experience and how people have been impacted, and not just kind of taking this as like, oh, that's how the plan's going to be, and here's the goals that they're trying to achieve, and taking that at face value. Like, trying to learn how it was implemented, who's it's impacting, how it is impacting vulnerable communities, and also what is the community's opinion about it. Just because there's something shiny and helps maybe the national economy at large, that doesn't mean that it's improving quality of life. So yeah, I would just to say it enhances your studies and research by really being able to dive deep and learn more about how it's impacting human lives.
Yeah, I would say something similar. I mean, because I haven't had the chance to actually, I guess, implement any of the things I've learned in like research or in the workplace because of this whole COVID situation. But like having the lessons that I've learned from GSP, I think it'll like enhance my experience and my performance when I get in those spaces, because I'll be able to like Brigitte said, can like dive deeper and understand why things happen, and like kind of like take a step back and look at the bigger picture in a sense, rather than just like coming in with my preconceived notions, or just like trying to, I guess, do what I would want to do for a community of people, rather than like listening to what they want and like then trying to execute what they like actually need me to do. So yeah, I would say something similar to that.
I guess like I agree with everything everyone said, but like just another additional perspective would be like I'm doing engineering at Michigan, and usually you don't actually get to be involved in learning more about human rights issues and social justice issues, which you may care about. So I feel from that perspective, also having the opportunity to interact with my peers about such issues and things which I care about is a very good opportunity while at college. And I guess that's definitely a very big learning experience for me, and something which I value a lot.
Thank you so much for those anecdotes, you guys. Moving forward, do you think that GSP has helped you push yourself out of your comfort zone or prepare you for something else going forward? And if so, what might those things be?
I would say yes. Just because like during your time in GSP, you meet so many people from different walks of life, from different places, with like different views and things that like you really and like you all live together too. So like you learn how to interact with people of varying different identities from your own, which is something that a lot of people don't necessarily learn because a lot of people like to surround themselves with people that are for the most part like them or like think the same or act the same. So that's a very valuable lesson that taking like forward you'll be able to actually interact with more people in a meaningful way. And then other than that, hmm oh yeah, I guess going back to, so again, like Samira said, I'm also an engineer. We don't talk about social justice or anything in like our classes, so like getting a different perspective and like getting to have like a kind of multidisciplinary approach to things is like something that's actually valuable, especially considering that like people like to say engineering is like a science field, but it's just as much like a social field as it is a science field because at the end of the day, you're designing things for people to use. So um, just having that kind of like background is very important also going forward.
Yeah, I think the big piece there is just pushing yourself out of your comfort zone and um, learning that it's okay to be uncomfortable, which of course is not the same thing as unsafe, but to be uncomfortable in conversations is okay because it's good to challenge your own, like I said, preconceived thoughts or like your perceptions of things. So again, just in the workplace, like, and even just in family and friend conversations, to be honest, it's really helped me to feel confident in calling something out, and also helping people to learn from what they have said or what they were doing as well. Um, like, I think I also am passionate about sustainability, and I moved back home after graduation, and there were so many things that I forgot that my family did as standard practices. And I had to stop myself from just like yelling and being like, don't do that, like, to trying to take the time to say, like, why do we always like throw this out instead of um, finding something that we can reuse instead? And just kind of have a more productive conversation about it so that together we can think through the old practices that we had, and then I found that my family, peers, and friends were way more open to um, a different approach if together you could walk through and learn how it was actually destructive or harmful. So um, yeah, it's just helped me to not really be shy and like and really take the time to address an issue. And I think also like once you enter the workplace too, everything is, and this is true for school as well, you operate on a schedule. You're like, oh, we got to get to this next thing to, but again, from the values you learn in GSP and you really know to be valuable and true in yourself, like just having your own inner self-confidence to really take the time if you know it's important to stop and talk about it. So yeah, it's definitely prepared me for a lot of difficult conversation in the workplace and just personally.
I guess I would have a similar thing to say, essentially, like having conversation with other people and learning, like having deep conversations, not just like talking about simple issues, but like trying to go beyond that, and also like and trying to talk about issues which are not easy to talk about is definitely something which is important. And like I feel that being a GSP and having this experience makes it more easy to have these conversations when the time comes. Like if something's happening around you and you don't feel comfortable having it, I think being in GSP would probably make you more comfortable, maybe reaching out to people in situations and talking to them about these difficult issues. So I think that that's definitely something that I would take forward from GSP going ahead.
Thank you, guys. I'd also like to add that just because there are so many different kinds of people that come from so many different backgrounds, it's an immersive experience that you won't find anywhere else. It's kind of just like living in the same house as so many different kinds of people, but by being in that same house, it can really turn into a family. And yeah.
Yeah, it certainly really becomes a family. And there are even people that I just randomly sat down with in the cafeteria to have a conversation with because I recognize them from GSP lecture that are now people I still call for advice or just to get input or just even to check in on friends. Like they really become your close friends and family. And it really is a unique, very unique experience at U of M. And it can be really easy to kind of feel lost in the crowd of people, especially if you have big lectures or I mean, it's a big Wolverine community and it's a big campus. So just knowing that your roommate, your hallmates, your GSP family cares for you, and it makes a big difference. So I highly recommend looking more into GSP and giving it a chance.
Well, that was our last question for you all. Thank you so much. It was honestly such a privilege to hear your guys' experiences. I know that, yeah, it's been so much fun to hear your guys' stories and kind of to go off of Brigitte. I like this. GSP has helped me find a community in such a daunting place, especially being out of state, not knowing many people here. This has just been such a blessing. Yes. So yeah, I guess that'll be the end for today. Thank you guys so much for coming. Yeah.
Apply to GSP.